All right, good morning and welcome to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Lots to go look at here today. So let's get started. Let's start looking here at our positions pre-market and kind of talk through them just a little bit. Let's start with silver. We have silver position on long silver. And I have the silver futures up here. You can see we start here on Tuesday. We get the big up. We get the pullback on Thursday into Friday. We get the entry opportunity. Silver since has kind of been pretty much flat. It's found some support down here around the 2230 area. It has rallied back nicely over the last 15 to 30 minutes to where the SLV is actually going to open positive instead of gapping down, which is really nice to see. But silver still holding a nice little consolidation range here. I still expect silver to do some great things for us and to be quite bullish. With gold down slightly and some of the pre-market selling in silver, we do see some of the gold miners are going to open a little bit weaker this morning. Any kind of pullback in these gold miners is a really nice buy opportunity, and we'll look at it as such here going forward. Let's take a look here at gold, and you'll kind of see something similar. Okay, not quite rebounding as high as silver did. Oil also weakened a little bit overnight. Okay, nothing drastic, nothing dramatic, but a slight weakening. And then we've seen bonds weaken here this morning. Okay, and let me put this in perspective, right? I have a 1 week chart here, 15-minute chart. Okay, let's put this in perspective of where bonds are. And Posty, you had mentioned TLT going down a bit early, and I said something kind of weird. I said that finally and good, right? Why would I be actually rooting for TLT to open lower? Okay, that seems really counterintuitive. Okay, well, a lot of times with the metals, with bonds, when you're dealing with these major ETFs, even currencies, you need a little bit of a sell-off to spark a rally. Let's go take a look here at TLT. Okay, let's go take a look here at TLT. And, we talked bullish on TLT back here in September. And what did it do? It just bled and bled and bled and bled and just kind of went flat. It finally had 3 days of selling come in, and it finally sparked some buying. Okay, and a lot of times this is the case. We need a little bit of a sell-off to really for buyers to step back in. They see some movement and say, "Hey, it's finally ready to move. Let's buy." Now, bonds have a lot of catalysts here this week. The Fed meeting kicks off here today. We had some inflation data here this morning that we'll talk about. But Fed meeting kicks off today. Tomorrow we'll have the Fed statement, interviews, and the Federal Open Mouth Committee basically opening their mouth on everything, and that will be a nice catalyst for bonds. We have more economic data later this week and into next week, so we have plenty of catalysts for bonds going forward here. And so it pulling back even a dollar today. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to react to it. We're reacting to the major trend that's building here overall, and not to the 20, 50 cent fluctuations. I know I've gone back and I've looked at I've looked in the past here, showed you the last TLT that we rode, but the last TLT we rode was a lot more volatile than this. Let me just pull it up here for you. Back here in March on the upside, you'll notice we had this little breakout go on here mid-March, and let me see if I can zoom it in here. No, that didn't work. That just flipped my page. But mid-March here, and we got a hard pullback. I believe that was on a Friday where we got a really hard pullback, and that finally catalyzed some movement higher, and so we need some of that to come in here for the TLT. Obviously don't want too much, right? I want to see some of these levels hold, down here, this 127 here on bond futures. We need to see that hold up here. Okay. All right. We also then have our two candlestick trades. Okay, we have XLE. Oil is down here this morning. Okay, but we've seen very little correlation between the price of oil and XLE. In fact, they've actually had some negative correlation if you look over the past 2 months. So, we're looking at XLE here. It's still within this gap area. It's coming back, coming back up here. We've had this low volume rally. Problem with low volume rallies is you never know when they're going to end. So far, no signs of ending right here. It may get a little bit of a bump up. BP earnings came out. Stocks trading higher. BP is not a big component of the XLE, but it may give a little bit of a lift here to the Chevrons and Exxons, who are the biggest components here for the XLE. So we'll kind of see how that plays out here today. But, we closed below 87. I'm still pretty happy with it. It'll have a little bit of a gap up today. We'd love to see some sort of bearish engulfing or dark cloud come in here. But we'll kind of obviously monitor that as it goes. And then the one we got into yesterday, Starbucks. Okay. Starbucks here on the bearish engulfing. Okay, from an indicator standpoint, we have negative divergences and everything else, but we are definitely counter trend, right? I mean, trend is definitely up. This is a counter trend play, which is what candlestick patterns allow us to play. They allow us to play counter trend plays, but anytime we're doing a counter trend play, there's always a little bit more risk involved. So the options that we chose with this counter trend play, we're not looking at a huge hit if it goes against us. 79.40 is the point at which, at some time today, we go above 79.40. We'll pull it off and live to fight another day. It won't be a huge hit to the options. And we're just looking for some follow through on this bearish engulfing. Starbucks has earnings tomorrow after the bell. And so we won't hold it over earnings, barring anything major happening. But tomorrow after the bell, it's a stock that overall I'm bullish on. Okay, but we found some resistance here at 80. We found some downside catalyst here. Volumes point our way. We'll see where this goes. It's probably going to open up slightly higher with the market here this morning. We'll see what the trading is on that immediately as the market opens up here. Okay, so those are our positions here as we head into the bell, about 3 minutes away. I'll look at some of the other stocks that you've been asking about, but let's start with looking at the economic calendar. And I'm just at Bloomberg.com, came down to market data and over to economic calendar. Okay, and this will show. Okay, the activity or the economic actions here this week. Okay, take a look here. We have the retail sales. We have producer price index. Producer price index is a measure of inflation. Okay, it's a measure of inflation. And one of the things we've been talking about throughout this whole Fed taper talk and everything else, that the one thing the Fed does not want to see is deflation. Deflation is what made the Great Depression so much worse. Okay, what made it so much worse overall was deflation. And if we start to see that deflation come in, there's no way the Fed is going to even come close to tapering. They will likely actually increase the quantitative easing rather than taper more. So we see some potential signs here of deflation. Nothing to say, oh, deflation is here, but we definitely do not have inflation from the way the Fed looks at it. Now, obviously, we can argue about how the Fed looks at it, but the way they look at it, we don't see any of that. We have the Consumer Price Index tomorrow, ADP employment report, FOMC meeting announcement. So we have a lot of data that can potentially be a nice catalyst for our bonds. It can also be a catalyst for the market. Market hasn't really had any catalyst to go off of here, so we'll kind of see what comes about here. Retail sales missed today. In fact, they came in at negative 0.1% when they were supposed to come in at 0. Okay. Yes, it's a miss and it's down from the prior month, but it's not such a miss that I go, oh, retail's in trouble, or hey, you know what, this data is signaling a big shift in mentality. Overall, we know the data is going to be lukewarm to relatively weak. That's what the market's already priced in. The market's not going up because of data. The market's not going up because of great economic improvement. Okay, the market's going up because, well, I'll let you, I'll let you decide on that. Several good arguments I don't really want to get into right here, but you see we have a lot of catalysts here this week, and then next week we'll have a lot of data as well. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at a couple of the stocks going on, and then we'll get to Apple here. Well, let's start with Apple. Apple AAPL. Let's just show you the activity here, and I'm just going to go to the 1-minute chart. Okay. And here's Apple yesterday after the bell reporting earnings. Okay, initially shoots higher, then falls flat all the way down here to 500. Comes on back. They start to have their conference call. We see Apple coming in and actually, ending about flat overnight. Then this morning, we get the analyst parade. Okay, we get the analyst parade come out where, if you'll notice here, Apple price target lifted. Apple delivers beat and raise. Apple target raised. Apple gets last minute that was yesterday, sorry. Apple targets estimated Goldman Sachs. Deutsche Bank keeps Apple. Valuation ranged at Wells Fargo. Everybody's talking about Apple. Most of the analysts have been pretty positive on it. That bodes well for Apple going forward here this morning, and kind of continuing to push on higher here. Obviously the first little bit it's going to be pretty reactive up and down and all around, but this is a very mild reaction here for Apple overall on this earnings report. The earnings report was okay. You're still talking about a stock whose value, if they put any type of normal valuations on it, we could be talking about a stock that's trading up in the $700 to $800 range, with only the growth that they currently have. So, it's one that's very difficult to get short from a fundamental standpoint, and does have several catalysts to push on higher here. Let's take a look here at Key. I'm watching our positions here out of the corner of my eye. I will go back and talk about those here. Let's go take a look at Key Bank. John, you asked about Key Bank here this morning. Look, Key Bank had a decent earnings report a couple months ago. Visited a buddy of mine in Salt Lake, and he works at Key Corp. And they have some offices in the top of one of the high-rise buildings here in Salt Lake. And when I walked in, the first thing I noticed is it's empty, absolutely empty. And Key has slashed their labor tremendously. And they've become a pretty much well-oiled machine there. Lots of cash on their book, good earnings. It would take some real economic disturbance to kind of destroy some of the trend here on Key. Do I think it's a little overbought? Would I have trouble buying it here? Yeah. But, overall a good story there for Key Corp. LUV, Southwest Airlines, continues on its major uptrend. It's been overbought for the last $1.50, okay, but continues to push on higher. Real tough one to be a buyer of, but you really can't short it here either. In the airline group, okay, you have LCC here today with a nice gap up. They're kind of pulling back a little bit on the open. but overall a nice gap up there. We've talked a little bit about UAL. UAL triggered a trend rider bull signal yesterday, continuing on higher, probably going to push up into the 34 area. I'd rather some of those than LUV. Tico Energy here, as far as there being any real great trade setup, I mean, you're dealing with what is probably going to be some resistance here between 1725 and 1775. So I kind of look at Tico Energy and say, you know what, just there's nothing really to mess with there. Western Union continues to trade in a bull vibe signal, even a trend rider signal to the upside. Continues to be quite positive. Some good volumes building in. You have to ask yourself, okay, is that because it's topping? I'm not sure when Western Union's earnings are. Let me go double check here. We have Western Union, okay, today after the bell. So, nothing really to mess with there. Unless you want that earnings that earnings risk there. Okay. All right. Starbucks is pushing up to our stop here. Let me pull it up here. Okay, 79, the 79.40 is what I wanted to avoid here on Starbucks. We start hitting that, want to be out, so I'm probably going to pull that off here. I'm just going to give it another minute here. Just looking real quick here. Okay, so you see it kind of right up here at the 79.40 area. Just kind of, we'll see if it pauses here for just a second. You'll see, as far as the profit and loss on it, for doing worst case scenario, it's not a huge loss here. That comes down to how we structured the trade, and the fact that they have earnings coming up here in 2 days, tomorrow after the bell. Look, while I'm letting it tick for just a minute here, gonna give it another 5 minutes here. TLT, okay, you can see it here, kind of getting the breakdown below 108. Okay, this is 107.5 to 107, where we would expect some support. And what I'm looking for is a fast snapback type rally to happen as we get into tomorrow, maybe even into the end of the day. I don't think it will happen early today, but some sort of snapback rally. And any snapback rally that pushes it back over 108, the TLT becomes addable. That becomes a position where, okay, we can now go out and be a buyer of or add to that position here on TLT. The SLV, which we have for the trend rider, up about 3 cents. Pre-market, this was trading down almost 20 cents at one point. So really had a big comeback that we don't see here on the chart, but overall remains in a very bullish position. XLE here today, you'll notice it's right up here at our spinning doji, breaking 87. I will also look at pulling this off here this morning, given the morning action on that. Those of you who have been with us for a while, I hate to make decisions in the first 5-10 minutes of the trading day. But so I'm going to give it another about 5-6 minutes here. We'll kind of see where that plays out. Let's see here. Apple holding on to some of its gains, getting a little sold right at the open here. Let's go look at. I was asked to look at Triple D here. DDD. Okay, Triple D reported earnings this morning. Haven't gone through the earnings report yet, but you can see how active the stock has been. It's traded in over a 10% range here already today. Okay, that's not uncommon. That's what you deal with some of these major growth stocks. From looking at the raw numbers, they lowered some guidance going forward, which can sometimes be a hit to a stock. But there's such growth here that that dip is so far getting bought up here quickly. You'll notice the option prices really aren't moving right here with Starbucks. Okay. So Starbucks has been up and down 5, 5, 6, 7 cents here, but we're not getting the option prices moving very much here um, in the last about 10 cents. That's typical with an option that was structured this way. This kind of goes back to our discussion yesterday when you're talking about candlesticks or any technical signals. Do you trust what you see or do you wait for confirmation? And it can be a catch-22. I mean, we had, from a technical standpoint, everything in play for Starbucks yesterday. It's not following through here today. No major follow through coming in on it here. So far today for some of the downside that we saw yesterday. All right, we have Starbucks now ticking back below the 79.40 area. Okay, I'm just gonna let it play just a little bit here. You'll notice from a volume standpoint, we first minute big volumes, not tremendous volumes throughout the rest of the uptick. We do have bigger volumes coming in as it ticks lower. We were in an upside trade on Starbucks not too long ago. Yeah, we're used to seeing it move and move, without the market, one way or the other. The XLE I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about, and not will the trade work. I mean, the trade will eventually work. How much more of a bleed higher, do we have to go through? Do we have to kind of put up with it for the XLE? Where it is right now. I mean, it basically opened up at this level, so it's not like, I know it shows that it opened at 86.91, but we saw it. It basically went to 87.20 almost right away. So kind of keeping an eye on that area. I know it's above the 87, but it's still not getting a lot of follow through to where it opened. So I'll kind of keep an eye on it here. I mean, those of you who know me, you know that XLE is one of my favorite positions on the board. This is Starbucks hourly, okay? My concern about Starbucks from an hourly perspective is if we start to trade above the 20-hour moving average. Okay, you'll notice on Starbucks over the past history here, moves above the 20-hour and below the 20-hour have been significant moves for Starbucks. So that's my concern is if it's move trading there above the 20-hour, that's that's you know uh, that's a concern, is especially heading in. Okay. Okay. Could you look at promising cheap stock for me? Okay. Yeah. OPTT. Yeah. Let's pull it up here. Now, we're talking about stock here with no volume, no volume, no volume, huge volume, big pop. Now dropping. My concern with these stocks that are below about $3 is that are below $5 essentially. Is there some sort of pump and dump scheme going on? A lot of times there's some pump and dump that happens where people will send out all these emails and say, hey, you know what, buy this, buy this, buy this. They get some people to start buying. It kind of rolls and shoots higher and then drops lower. I mean, VISN recently. We're talking about a $2 stock that pops to 18, now trading at 8. That's my concern is something like that. So when it comes to OPTT, I'd really want to know, okay, fundamentally what's going on, and this becomes to me more of a long-term investment than a real trade on the board here with OPTT. So I'm not even sure the chart gives you anything that is significant. The one thing you will notice from this chart is it tends to have these strong ups, and they don't necessarily all follow through. But at the same time, I can't really say anything definitive about that unless until we have you know uh, unless I know some of the fundamentals that are going on with it, and I'm just not familiar with this stock. Let me just pull it up here. OPTT utility. So are they more of an alternative power? Renewable energy. Okay, ocean waves. It's a really cool concept. Using the waves to drive energy there. When I'm dealing with a company like this, I always want to know what's their cash. How much cash do they have? And the fact that they have a buck 68 on hand, and again, this is just the raw number. I'd want to kind of do some digging and see, but the fact that they have some cash per share on hand is good. A lot of times you'll see companies like this, they have no cash. And they have to raise money by doing reverse splits and all kinds of crazy stuff, or adding more stock to the pool. So it looks like on the surface from their numbers, this is just a hey, we haven't made profit yet. But yeah, TMT, if they just got contracted by Japan for some of their new technology, this could easily turn into one of those nice growth stocks. So, uh, from a trade standpoint, no. From a growth stock standpoint, heck, it's obviously a gamble here, but it's one that just on the surface here, it doesn't look too dangerous. I'll look at it some more here today, TMT. Okay, so we have Starbucks kind of bleeding back up above the 79.40 level. Looks like I'm going to have to pull that off here. Aaron, when will our XLE option not work? How much bleeding higher before we're out? Yeah, I mean it's at my bleed state. I mean it's at that state where I can't let it bleed very much higher here. And so I am looking to pull it off. It's basically right where it opened right now. So I'm just giving it the little bit there this morning to kind of play out. AUY. Okay, we got out of AUY yesterday. And if you look here, AUY hit the top band yesterday, hit our 1040 types target, pulling back here a little bit today. I am looking to get back into it. Would love to get back into it. It's coming back to the lower band, coming back here to 10. I'd love to see this thing break back below 10 and then push back above it and use that as a nice little entry point for AUY. Some of the other gold that we talked about, Newmont holding up pretty well. They are holding up. They are holding up pretty well in this environment, and I hope that they'll be good enough to give us a nice little entry point with them. Okay, see the TLT down 20 cents. It's off its lows. It's off its highs. We have SLV kind of up about 5 cents here. Nothing major there. Again, it's the Starbucks and the XLE that I'm concerned with, and the XLE, as far as as far as the stop and everything else. You'll notice here, it opened what about 87.18. I know it says 86.89, but when we pull up the 1 minute, it shot up to that 86.18, 87.34 right away. Okay, you kind of see 3 minutes. It's at 87.27. It's pretty much been pulling back ever since. Okay, so just the one thing about a stock that gaps up in the case of XLE here today is when they're ready to turn down, they'll oftentimes give some sort of bearish engulfing. And so, what does that require? That requires a gap up. So as long as we don't see any real follow through selling come in, I'll continue to look for results there. Starbucks, we're getting the opposite going on here. We are getting some follow through. You'll notice what it's done to the options. The option was, with Starbucks up 70 cents, the option was at $1.40. Now with Starbucks up 86 cents, the option's at about $1.38. So, the lack of movement here in the option, speaks a lot to Starbucks earnings that are coming up, and the fact that the option price isn't extremely volatile, allows to kind of keep a little bit of an eye on it and give it that first half hour to say, hey, you know what, is it going to perform for us or is it not? For the record, Carl has the trade exit already for Starbucks to get out. Just waiting to pull the trigger there if we have to. So we'll be able to do that quickly if we need. Bank of America, John. Look, this is the kind of chart that I always hate to say made a career out of, but has done me so well in the past. This bearish breakdown, low volume uptick back to the 7, starting to turn back down on a lower high. It's a great chart. You come into the hourly, you're getting the fresh break of the 7. Everything here on Bank of America screams going lower. Everything screams going lower. Okay, you're just dealing in a little bit of a different market than what we've been in even in the last 10 years. You see XLE pushing back below the 87 mark here. We have Starbucks pushing back below the 79.40 area. If I just bring up the chart here on XLE, you can kind of see what it's doing here. You pull up Starbucks, and you kind of see what it's doing here overall. Sorry, just skimming through some of the stocks and some of the reactions that we've seen. We talked quite a bit about Tesla yesterday. Tesla is getting some downside follow through. Okay, Tesla's getting some downside follow through in a trend rider bear mode. Netflix here getting a small bounce after yesterday's ugliness, but all bearishness continues to exist here with Netflix. Let's take a look here at Baidu. It's about flat. Baidu has earnings after the bell here today, so it's not anything I would mess with ahead of those earnings. We just recently saw earnings here on Sohu. You see what the reaction was there. Now Baidu, you could see it do the opposite or whatever, but it will definitely move. Unlike Apple, who, well, from a chart standpoint, you probably won't even be able to 3 months from now look back and say, hey, October 28th was their earnings. It'll probably be a little bit difficult there, given the overall lack of movement here with Starbucks. Yeah, TMT. As far as Bank of America, just starting to get rid of some of their countrywide stuff. Here, I'll bring the article that you posted right in here. Um, the whole countrywide was a mess during the financial crisis, and their CEO would come on CNBC almost once a week, and he would pump up their stock, and he would say, no, everything's great, grand, and wonderful, and at the same time, he's basically selling the stock, selling it, his own shares. And basically, Bank of America, they ended up taking on Countrywide back when the Fed was divvying out all these companies. Wells Fargo got stuck with Wachovia. J.P. Morgan with several. I and it's a continued mess. There's still a lot to be done. There's still assets that are not written off. The Fed has tried to take on most of those, but there's still, it's still going to be a mess for years to come here. Okay, for years to come. And it's one of those things with Bank of America, right? I mean, you look at the valuations of Bank of America and you say, you know what? If they're not attacked by the government and they can kind of just continue to operate and the economy doesn't fall apart, there's some great value to unlock there with Bank of America. But there's some those severe risk factors that are involved and that are part of the financial system as we know it right now. All right, let's go through the positions again for those of you just hopping on. Let's talk. Well, let's start with SLV, the silver lining, right? SLV up about 6 cents here. Nothing really to react to. Uh, the chart looks flat, right? I mean, it looks absolutely flat. But let me pull up silver in a little different light. Okay, take a look. This is last night. Okay, this is about 1:30 in the morning Mountain Time. Huge sell. Okay, stays down here all night. And then this morning, about an hour before the open, we see silver start to climb back up in a very nice way. So while the actual daily chart on stock charts doesn't look like anything, the the futures show a little bit different there for silver. Okay, let's go take a look at TLT. Mentioned this morning. Happy to see it open up lower this morning. And I know this sounds crazy. I'd love to see TLT down 75 cents to a dollar. Do I think that's going to happen? Do I want to play for that? No, absolutely not. But if it's down, a lot of times something that's in an upward trend needs one of those sell-off days to push it higher for people to come in and buy. They see, okay, we finally had a pullback. Let's go buy. And really, that's with TLT. That's essentially what we saw here September and October, right? Finally got that selling, and okay, here come the buyers. We have Catalyst here for TLT starting tomorrow, and we have Catalyst basically almost every day for the next 2 weeks here for TLT. And, I want to hold TLT over the Fed meeting here, Fed meeting tomorrow, where they will kind of give their verdict on things or state their policy. So TLT, like I said, even if it's down $1 today, I'm not going to move on it. Okay, I'm not TLT. It's just not one of those to react to 20-cent moves. Even dollar moves are tough to react to in terms of the trend. Okay? So that's silver TLT. No plans to move on those. Let's take a look at our new candle position yesterday. Starbucks. Okay, and 79.40 is the area that I don't want to see it push above. We had perfect setup yesterday. Okay, from a bearish engulfing standpoint. And Starbucks has been one that even this year the bearish engulfings have worked. So it's not like one of those stocks where bearish engulfings have been bought up. This one, we get a little bit of a bounce here this morning. It's coming off of that, now only up 46 cents. We've seen the options. We've looked at what the options have done, as far as their low reactivity. Okay, their low reactivity there. So what? We're down $96 on the position. Okay, with Starbucks maybe doing worst case scenario this morning. And so we'll continue to hold that as long as it stays below 79.40 here. And then XLE, okay, which opened higher here this morning. Okay, it basically opened at 87.30. It took 3 minutes to get there. Is now about 40 cents off its highs, about a 0.5% off its highs. Right in this resistance area. I know you've sensed reluctance from me to get rid of it here at resistance, and pinning that exact number is very difficult with some of these island reversals. But we got XLE bounce up basically because of BP here today. Not that BP is a big component of XLE, but that helps Chevron and Conoco and some of the other oils. Would be fantastic to see XLE give us a nice dark cloud bearish engulfing here today, and you know you'll hear me talk again and say, hey, I want to add more XLE puts. Okay, if we see that happen. Matt, yeah, good comment. Course, KORS was added to the S&P 500. That was announced yesterday. Interesting too. This morning, analysts came out and downgraded Course, saying it was fairly valued. As far as valuations, it wasn't like Coors was a cheap stock and has a lot of room to run. And if you just look at PE ratios, which is the crudest form of looking at valuations, you say, you know what, this thing is pretty highly valued. It's up there as far as valuations go. So generally, I don't like to mess with some of these stocks that get added. You'll typically see a bounce in them as mutual funds have to do a little bit of rotations, but you know nothing major there. All right, let's go take a look here. I'm kind of hanging on here with Starbucks, with XLE. Just if they turn the other way, I want to be able to pull them off here. You see a little bit of a gravestone doji here on XLE. It's still real early. You probably have similar action here on Chevron and Exxon. Yeah, I mean, here's Exxon with a gravestone coming in right at resistance. Again, we're only 30 minutes into the trading day, so talking candles is a little tough there. The oil service sector, okay, which had the same type of signals that we saw out of the XLE. Okay, he's had a small bounce here in a similar way as the XLE. Then you see me keep going to AUY. Why? Because, well, I'd like to get back into it. I would absolutely like to get back into AUY and play some of these gold miners on the next leg higher. I really like the action here on Newmont today. If it's able to hold on to that 7, close above 28, that would be fantastic. Okay. Yeah, St. Jude's continues higher. I know several of you are in St. Jude's. We had all that option volume on the 60 calls a while back. It looks headed to 60. Looks headed to 60 there. Medtronic, okay, I know two of you are in Medtronic. It continues to go. There's nothing bearish going on here. ISRG, they had their earnings gap down and they're finding support here at 370. I find this a very interesting place for them to be finding support. If you're those of you who like to play gap fills, you may have a nice shot to 400, even a little overshot to 410 there. Okay. Aetna reported earnings here. Okay, you see the continued downtrend here on Aetna, continued downtrend here on UNH, Humana. Humana's chart for a new, fresh, bearish entry. You're in an absolute trend rider bear mode here on Humana. These HMOs continue to pull back, and they're nowhere close to retracement levels yet. So they still have a ways to pull back there. We saw Bristol Myers shoot up yesterday, continuing a little bit higher here today. It's not something I would short. It's something that you're probably looking at around a $54, $55 price target on for for something like Bristol Myers here. As far as the broader market goes, here's the broader market, right? Again, just one of these 2, 3, 4 point up days. Just no catalyst for the downside, no catalyst for the upside. You just see a slow bleed higher as the sellers kind of wait their turn and the buyers slowly, reluctantly, buy back into this market here. Look, market bears are going to argue that the market's blowing its top off here with an exhaustion rally. Market bulls are going to say, hey, we've had taper talk, we've had war talk with Syria, we've had government shutdowns, and market's still setting all-time highs. That means the market's going higher. Obviously, 2007, I hate keep going back to it, but, if the market tops in 2007, the market bulls were saying, well, you know what, we've already dealt with a whole bunch of subprime. We know it's here. The market keeps going higher in the face of subprime. That means it's really bullish. Okay, that was one of the arguments. The other argument was the economic data was still really good. And it doesn't, you typically don't hit a top on bad news. You typically hit tops on good news and you hit bottoms on bad news. Alcoa is a great example of that. Alcoa earnings were pretty and the stock still gapped up and has been running ever since. And so, as far as the market, time will tell. There's no technical bearish signals out there. You have overbought. That's about all you have. Okay, is overbought on the market. One of the major overbought signals for the market is the MACD trading above 20. Okay, on the actual market. Doesn't mean it has to turn right now. But, market bears, all they really have is overbought. And that's a tough position to be at ultra aggressive from a bearish standpoint. Yeah, Max, Twitter IPO will be the top. Yeah, it could be, right? It could be. Facebook continues to sell off into their earnings. Continues to bleed lower. We have LinkedIn after the bell here today. They're selling off a little bit overall. But, as far as looking at LinkedIn chart, there's nothing here that is going to give a clue as far as, which way LinkedIn is going to go. In fact, I think LinkedIn will have more of an effect on Facebook trading. You'll be able to kind of comb through some LinkedIn earnings. What are the advertising rates they're getting, extrapolate some of those numbers, and get a clue on what the numbers for Facebook are going to be. Notice Newmont Mining turning positive here this morning. Okay. Very, very strong action there in Newmont. And just these gold miners in general. The gold miners in general, this morning's pullback is a nice opportunity to get into them on the upside there. All right, so we have Starbucks XLE, where, if they were to close right here, I would hold them, absolutely hold them. I'm going to hold them right here. They're both below our stops. They both hit above our stops here right on the open. This is one of the reasons I don't program hard stops, is because sometimes they just will hit them and come on right back down. And, you obviously take on a little bit more risk when you do that, but we'll continue to stay in those. Yeah, Intel here, PW, that gap up the other day above 24, and then starting to trade above 24.20. 24.20 was enough's enough for Intel. Microsoft changed the game a little bit for them with those Microsoft earnings. And so, Intel, there's nothing here that I can short yet until around 25. We also have Micron breaking above 17 here today. The semiconductor index here breaking back above the 7, wanting to fill that gap here. I mean, it's very difficult to be short Intel. I'd rather be long right here, but I don't think it's a great risk reward proposition. Yeah, Apple falling. Apple, so far a big old bearish engulfing here. Is this Carl Icahn or one of the other activist investors selling off? I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think this is more of a Apple's earnings were okay. That's nice. They didn't solve anything. They didn't. They didn't. You had good aspects. You had bad aspects. You had every analyst and their dog come out and defend Apple, and Apple pulling back. That makes it really tough to be long. That earnings report was good enough to send Apple to 550, 545, kind of like what we talked yesterday. It was good enough to send Apple there. And, if Apple continues its selling pressure throughout the day, that's not a great sign. Absolutely not a great sign there for them. Alrighty. Well, I am not going to be around for much of the day today. I will be watching the market. Carl will be with you on the trade seat and whatnot here, but I won't be around for a candlestick challenge um, class here today. Carl will be bringing out a learning topic here for you. I haven't sat down with him to know what he's going to talk about yet. Maybe he'll put it in the chat here, but he'll let you know there. And then as far as the trades here, I'll be around near the close and we'll make a decision here on the XLE or Starbucks, what we need to do with those where they are now. As far as XLE, I'd much rather be adding to the position than taking it off. But we'll see if we're able to hold that throughout the day here. Again, gold miners, very interesting entry here on the small pullback this morning. TLT, which opened significantly weaker, is only down about 18 cents. But nothing really to react to with that. And I'm very curious on U.S. Steel earnings. They lost $1.8 billion. $1.8 billion last quarter. It was about in line with expectations. But we were able to see U.S. Steel push higher on this. That could be a really good sign for steel overall. Okay, for steel overall. So we'll kind of let that play out. TMT is low bears. Are they starting? Look, lows. Yeah, I mean obviously they got overextended, but they're not getting aggressively sold here. I'd rather short Home Depot than Lowe's in general, but neither of them have a great sign. You could argue they are starting, but there's no real confirmation there of a pullback. I mean, you have Ryland, Lennar, even some of these home builders. Yeah, you can make some weakness arguments in them, but they're not really that great right here. Bees are probably the best with yesterday's breakdown, but a little difficult as far as that sector goes to be jumping in right here. Ford is very interesting to me with the breakout on earnings and failed to hold. Some major negative divergence for those of you who want to growl and be very bearish. Ford is a very interesting one. GM, okay, as well. It kind of goes along with some of the Tesla stuff there. All right, well, thanks for hopping on. Any questions, let us know either via chat or Jeff at TraderMinute.com or Carl at TraderMinute.com, and we will talk to you later. Take care.